I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.
Hello and welcome to another installment of Liberty Nation's Swamponomics videocast. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor. This week, is there a recession coming? The dreaded R word has traversed through Wall Street, Main Street, and every other street in America these days as a tsunami of red ink has flooded the New York Stock Exchange. Many signals are flashing red, from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta's GDP Now model estimate to the Fed's preferred 3-month 10-year yield curve. Consumer sentiment has been cratering over the last 2 months, with the public fearful about the future state of labor markets, business conditions, inflation, and much, much more. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent did not help matters when he declined to rule out a recession. Here's what he said in a weekend interview with NBC's Meet the Press.
It would have been very easy for us to come in, run these reckless policies that have been happening before. We've got these large government deficits, 6.7% of GDP. We've never seen this. When we're not in wartime, not in recession, we are bringing those down in a responsible way. We are going to have a transition, and we are not going to have a crisis.
This comes after President Donald Trump also declined to rule out a recession. Well, at least Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was more emphatic when he declared that there would be no economic downturn. Observing the financial markets and watching the mainstream media would depict a terrifying scenery, but isn't really. Based on research notes from economic observers and opinions in the consumer sentiment surveys, a common concern has been the potential economic impact of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. While DOGE-related effects have yet to materialize in the economic data, like the labor market figures, experts say it is only a matter of time before they begin appearing and possibly hurting the economic landscape. Now, here is a question. If scaling back the size and scope of government causes a recession, was the US economy ever strong? As Liberty Nation News has reported over the last few years, government spending, government expenditures, and government jobs have propped up the economy, contributing as much as 1/3 to the final GDP print and accounting for about a quarter of employment growth. The government produces nothing and only takes. So, if dismantling the Leviathan brick by brick triggers a downturn, it would be safe to say that the economy was hanging on by a thread. Put simply, it is a paper recession or a recession in name only. But what about the consumer? This too is an interesting component of the broader economy. Market watchers have saluted the consumers who have kept the GDP intact, with debt-laden consumption accounting for a majority of growth. Indeed, like the government, consumer spending has been fueled by debt, be it credit cards or the increasing popularity of buy now, pay later schemes. According to the New York Fed's latest quarterly report, household debt is about $18 trillion, with credit card debt well above $1 trillion. Price inflation has also made it difficult, with consumers spending more for less or the same, with real inflation-adjusted retail sales flat over the last few years. The definition of a recession is back-to-back quarters of negative GDP growth. When this occurred in the first half of 2022, the mainstream media went as far as redefining what a recession meant, taking its cues from the Biden White House. Of course, years later, the Bureau of Economic Analysis revised the GDP growth rate by a few percentage points to officially declare that the United States was not in a recession during this 2-quarter period. But does the media have a crystal ball? Of course not. Then, when consumers expressed their disdain for the Biden-era economy, the media concluded that the public was a bunch of maroons and they didn't know what they were talking about. Remember the vibe session? Like everything else happening in the world outside of economics, it is hard to take anything the media say at face value anymore. The Trump administration is convinced that the first 3 quarters of the president's second term will be rocky. By the 4th quarter, a new golden age of prosperity will be born. Is this a realistic possibility? If economic forecasting were easy, everyone would be a millionaire. And that's it for me this week. Please read my full Swamponomics column on the pages of LibertyNation.com and be sure to check out my previous Swamponomics TV videos and interviews. Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates or campaigns or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. Thank you. I'm Andrew Moran, Liberty Nation's economics editor.
Very, very rocky.
Death by government.
Drain the swamp.